Yeah, we're gonna do a little bit of talk on Sputnik because Sputnik Monroe. Sorry, ladies and gentlemen, I had a little bit of technical difficulties, but we're back here. And I'm just gonna give you the floor again, Toro. So you just go ahead, bro.
So Spud Monroe is a kind of an important figure in Memphis, and not just in wrestling, but as holistically as kind of a person who desegregated the wrestling shows. He was going to, he was essentially just, he was big in the black community and with the black fans. They really got behind him, and it wasn't just a thing where like they were behind it, but he was also behind them. He was, there's songs written about him and stories written about him, and he would go to like the blacks only bars in Memphis, and he would go to like he would socialize with them. He would kind of like reach out, like he would get them, and he would let them into force the promoters to let them into buildings, which was a really big deal in the 50s. Like he was kind of like in the
Yeah.
deep south in Memphis, being a person who was championing that, like, and wanted to kind of valued those fans and treated them as just fans, right? And again, like there's a lot of if you're willing to look it up, there's a lot of things written about him. And like he was also kind of like he was a very over wrestler in the town. He's like very over. He was like a drawing concern in Memphis, which is an important territory, which is probably historically underrepresented in the Hall of Fame, in my opinion. So I'm very much a clean yes on him because of the importance to that territory, because of the drawing and everything else. And I think it's like Memphis is underrepresented in the Hall. So I'd be a yes on him.
With Sputnik, historic. If I had a ballot, the historical significance would push me to say yes. But in terms of, you say he's a draw in Memphis, yes. But he's worked other places like Texas, and he wasn't that big of a draw. I mean, he had his fair share of main events, but he wasn't like biggest draw, like in Texas and Arizona and that places. But
Correct. Yeah, no,
um,
I agree with that. It's not something like we'll get into like Doral Dixon, and Doral Dixon's the guy who drew in a lot of places, right?
right, right.
Um, and then like I've seen matches with Doral Dixon working in Madison Square Garden, right, in WWE on top, and he was working Texas on top. He working other places on top. So yeah, no, I get that argument. I think again, I think part of that, as I mentioned, is I think Memphis is underrepresented historically in the Hall, and I think that he's an important figure in Memphis and also kind of a draw in that territory, which I think is it's an important territory. It's also underrepresented. If that makes sense, right? So I
That
kind of
definitely
like
makes sense. Yep.
right. So that's a little bit of a tweak. It's like if I was talking like I was talking like maybe Puerto Rico's underrepresented. If I was talking to somebody like I want on the ballot, I've said, hey, maybe put Sabio Vega and TNT on the ballot, like as a guy who there's been worse guys, and he was kind of an important figure, and he still is an important figure within the scene. And as I said, I think it's kind of underrepresented relative to the size of the houses that were being drawn, right, and relative to the influence on modern wrestling, maybe. And I think same thing with Memphis. I think Sputnik is an important figure in an important territory, right, with an important legacy beyond wrestling, right. And I think that puts me over on him, right? I get I get the concern. I understand why he's gone up and down. He's not. Would I, if I saw a better candidate than him, I might cut him, right? In some years, right? It would depend, right? Like right now I have him as a yes, but like ask again later after we go through some of these others. I have four votes on the board, and like I only have six, and this is gonna get kind of tough a little bit further down. Doc, where are you at on Sputnik?
Well, you know, on different discords that we're on different forums that I'm on, I've always been a big pusher of Sputnik Monroe as far as like because they're like to to your credit, there's books written about him, there's songs written about him, how he's seen, because there's something important about what he was doing. He was saying, black or white, it doesn't matter. Money is green. That's something that he said,
Yes,
and
yes, yes.
yeah, I like because like about 10 years ago, maybe 12 years ago, there was this movie that came out, Memphis Heat, right? Speak to your point about the lack of coverage on Memphis, but you know, it was a movie. They went over. the guys did it. There was Sputnik Monroe. There was Jackie Fargo. Superstar Bill Dundee, Jerry Lawler. Jerry Jarrett was in there, and like the thing that stood out to me about Monroe, because they also have a Sputnik Monroe Day that they celebrate over there in Memphis, and it's just like the way that this guy stood out and how he, during the time of civil unrest, during the civil rights movement, he saw it as an opportunity to sort of like go with that audience, and he would still get heat with the white audience, but if you watch those matches, he would get Toro knows this because Lucha Libre, you'd have like the Rudo, the Rudo section, and
Yeah.
they would go crazy for Sputnik. And it's funny because he was also Sputnik. That's like a Russian gimmick, so like he was gonna get heat
Yeah.
regardless. So I just
I mean,
for
I think
me, because I actually kind of did a report on him when I was taking because I was taking some humanities classes, and this was a class I took on African American history. I kind of tied my wrestling into it and all that stuff, and like how there's allies within like the movement. There's allies, right? And there's something to what he did that is sort of like, because we're talking about the days when they would throw batteries, when they would stab you, when they pull out a gun on you, and all that stuff, right? Those are white heat. That's what we're talking about. Memphis heat. And the way that he stood out to me, and it's just like when you think about that territory, you go on YouTube, you'll find like so many like things covering him dating like so long ago. So I I've done my research on him. I've sort of like he kind of has this folklore about him too, which I think is
he's a
also
folk
kind
hero.
of,
Yeah.
yeah, he's like it's a folk hero thing. So like he kind of like just you know uh in this minority community, we kind of call it a trill ass white boy, and Sputnik was the trill ass white boy that would go to the
I
Memphis
think
jazz bars and like do all that stuff. And I think that's important to build a community. Like when we're talking about building audiences, we're talking about guys going out there and being men of the people. And he was one of those guys that would go out and take pictures shaking hands with people, putting his arm around other black people and treating these people as people. And as for me, because like that's kind of a thing for me of whether it's historical significance or just like looking back at that era and then what that really means. And I just got to say, like, he's a yes for me because of all of that stuff, and the fact that he's a folk hero is kind of it's just for me, that's how it hits. And I know we have like territorial legends. We just talked to them like about the Von Erichs, um you know and like I that's what I got to say about Ole Anderson, not Ole Anderson, sorry. That's what I got to say about Sputnik. I'm a yes on him because sometimes we get a little bit biased on these things, but I just sort of see him like as sort of on that level. And like Memphis is an important territory to the history of pro wrestling, and whether it's Jackie Fargo or Jerry Jarrett, there's also Sputnik as part of like before Jerry Jarrett. Sputnik is like one of those legendary guys, like the Tojo Yamamoto kind of those names, and he was a star in that era, and he's just important to the history of that territory. And so that's
yeah,
all I got to say about that.
he's a good point. He's a folk hero. We'll talk about it a little more. He's a larger than life figure in an important territory, and I think that's important. I think one thing I'll mention is like I saw this great documentary on the Sears catalog, right? And the reason I mention it is one of the things that they mentioned is one of the reasons it got over, and it was really important, was that the Sears catalog would sell to you independent of your race, right? And this was in an era where like if you were not white, you were denied access to a lot of goods. Like the person who was running the town store could deny you access to like better clothes or like better tools or better like food. And just the idea of being able to do business and get the things that you need, a suit for an interview and that kind of thing, was really important to people. It was like something that was like a big change. So I think people underestimate like how important just simply being able to get into a show, right? and
Yeah.
being able to like spend your money on something that you wanted to see entertainment product like everyone else was to non-whites back in that era. And I think that's something that I think when we have the historical blinders on where we don't understand it necessarily. And I think that's kind of I go by why, like I said, like he's a folk here in the area for good reason, right? People still talk about him to this day. So I do think that like that actually like says to me that like yes, it's someone who is important. Like if this like it might be like I might be less inclined. It was a less important territory to me, but I think this is like a really important territory to wrestling as a whole too, and I think that's part of like why I'm a yes on. Next one, Wild Bull Curry. Boy, he, I think he's a deserving candidate, right? I'm at 4 votes already, right? And I want to save my last two. So he's a maybe for me for like Oli, he's a maybe for me for now. He's a worthwhile candidate. He's a candidate that I would possibly vote for if I had the votes left over. But if I had a ballot for this year, I would not be spending it on Wild Bill Curry, probably. Damn. I hate that, but it is what it is. Doc?
Um, Wild Bill Curry, you'll probably know him from if you watch like if you see like old like posters and stuff. He's the guy with the crazy eyebrows. He he's a Lebanese descent, like Sabu and the Sheik after him. And actually, he before the Sheik, he was kind of the wild man character who kind of like did the wild bloody brawls. But I would not use my vote on him.
He is like I think I'm kind of like I'm going by like I pulled up Alan Cheapshot's like argument, and he is a massive draw for a very long time. He's a guy who drew everywhere, and he said he was kind of the Brody archetype, right? That very like that wild man archetype, that kind of like work everywhere. And as I said, he is a very worthwhile candidate, right? I just have two people that like I am waiting. Like my last two votes, I am saving for two. Let's say acts, right? And so, as much as I hate it, right, I can't use my vote on him. But he is definitely a worthwhile candidate. He's like, as I said, like he was filling
Yeah,
arenas everywhere, right? And as you're saying, like he's also the archetype for like the Brodies, the Sheik, that kind of Sabu, the wild man kind of archetype.
yeah.
So definitely a historically significant figure. Definitely a guy who he this is my first. I hate that I can't use my vote. Like my fictitious vote. I'm like the
It's so
first time. I'm
hard,
like,
man.
oh god. Like I can live with not voting for Oli, but it kills me not to be able to vote for Wild Bill. Damn it. Okay. Hey Mel, what do you think?
Uh, that's somewhat. Wobble Curry is someone I have to do a little bit more research on, but definitely has a case. He definitely has a case in terms of pioneering the hardcore style, and I've heard people talk about him before. Just him and there's a case for a pimp. It's funny because him and Pampero Firpo, they have similar
Yeah.
cases. Just in terms of that style and but yeah, I would have to take a little bit more time to really investigate him.
Yeah, it's like it's a simply a case where like you run out of votes sometimes, and with him, I think it's a case where like I think are we all maybes or are we all no's on him?
Because I can't put my
We're,
vote for
we're not
him,
gonna find
but
we're not
I
gonna find
would keep
like
him on the ballot. That's kind of what I
if I
that's kind of
haven't
where
if
I'm at.
he I would vote for him to get in the hall, but I don't have enough. I can't. I don't. Six
Yeah,
votes is not enough to get to him. Basically,
yeah.
is we're out of.
Yeah.
So
It's
he's
it's
gonna get a zero
crazy.
from all three of us, and we're all gonna hate ourselves for it.
I feel bad
Next
for it,
one
man.
is kind of the opposite. And I feel bad for him, but like he's the guy with vote. Like next guy, Cabo Bareilles, he's gotten 28% of the vote. I would be a yes on Cabo Bareilles, and because he's a guy who, similar to Curry, like is also like they're similar candidates. I think I would rate slightly higher. He also like drew in Puerto Rico, so I'm kind of like I'd be
Okay.
a yes. I'd be a yes on him. But it's like again, we're getting into like, yeah. Mm, you
Yeah.
know what? I'm gonna take that back. I'm
Oh,
gonna go. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go maybe on him, and I think I'm not gonna have a vote for him. And sadly, damn it,
yeah.
because I just realized that I need to. I need two more votes.
I'm looking at what we have coming up next, man.
The
I,
thing about
you know,
I want to go
No,
ahead.
no, go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, the thing about Cowboy Bob Ellis is that we, for the longest time, people thought he was still alive, and then we found out he passed away in 2018. So,
Mhm.
like, how does that work? Because I've been trying to update. We have a sheet internally that started it about the observer death bump, and it's a real thing. And we wanted to see. I mean, if people actually knew about Cowboy Bob Ellis's death in 2018, he didn't get a death bump, but I want to see it would go in terms of the voting this year because last year he only had 28% of the vote. So I think there'll be a slight bump, but not that much. I mean, he's been trending a little bit downward a little bit, but we'll see.
I think here's the thing. I think that of the last two candidates we talked about, right, Curry and Bob Ellis, I think Curry's the guy who probably will eventually go in because someone's going to write a Wild Bill Curry kind of retrospective, kind of like we've seen some of these cases before, where like you go like you look at it in whole and go like, yeah, okay. And I think also like some like you'll clear some of the guys in front of him, and like you'll be more votes. Ellis, nobody's written it for Ellis, and Ellis has been on the ballot what 12 years now. And I don't know that like when he gets to that last kind of like year, like I think he's like 2 years removed from like getting to 50, like 14, 15, where like he's gonna get need to get 50. So he's a guy who might fall off. I think Curry's a guy who will kind of move up because there's a lot of there's it's a similar case, but I think like it is probably better with Curry, right? But again, we're
Yeah,
getting into like kind of
yeah.
I mean, with Ellis, I mean, if he's not counting the years that he left him off and just put him back on, because he got on the ballot
Oh,
2010.
okay. So I've had the long conversation with people who are like talking to me directly on this, and so
Hmm.
supposedly the rule is you have 15 years to get on from the first time you're on the ballot, right? Unless you're Adam Copeland. Um, in which case the rules are like, but effectively you have 15 years from the time you get on, time you get off. The reason with Adam Copeland is supposedly because he's an active wrestler. He's still in the middle of that, so it's stretching his prime. Although we're trying to convince, like when I say I'm trying, we're talking to people we're talking today and say like, no, just he's been on. I think Edge has been on for I think he's on year 16 now. Like
Yeah.
God, it's like I'm getting
Since
to modern like so
2009. Yeah.
Edge has been on for 16 years. So there's
Yeah,
like, and I was gonna get to this later, but essentially we're like, there's a lot of people like we've been trying to pitch just Paul next year say, look, he needs to get 50% of the vote or he's off, right? And the reason I was trying to say that is you need an endpoint because nobody's talking about Edge. I can't find a case for it. Nobody's making the case for Edge. So if nobody's talking about it and it hasn't moved, you need to put an endpoint on it. And make it next year. Next year the ballot for modern should be clearer than it is this year, and he'll get his best chance to get 50%. And you'll have a conversation around him, and you either have him on or he falls off, and then Dave can put him back on with Christian immediately. Fine, which whatever. You might be able to convince me more if it's Edge and Christian than it is Edge. But if effectively you want to have these conversations and put them on, like, but yes, but getting back to the point, which was Cabo Ellis would be to the year like so basically when he gets to 15, he's gonna get into the eligibility from the first time he's on, right? Even though he fell off and came back on. Um,
yeah. I mean, if Dave's counting when if he's not counting the years that he was left off the ballot, it's been 11 years for him. Now, the thing is that he got on the ballot in 2010, got less than 10% of the vote, and then came back on in 2015. So it depends on what Dave's
You're
going to
saying
count.
if we count that, well, the other case where that happened was I got into an argument with this about like there's a candidate that's is probably gonna be the first candidate to fall off the ballot, get voted off the ballot 3 times. Now we were talking about like Kerry Von Erich. Somebody says like no, but he fell off the third time. Like, but the third time Kerry fell off, he didn't get voted off. Kerry kind of is a weird eligibility thing. I think he's like I forget it's like 30 or 40, and then like Dave took him off and then put him and his brothers on. So it's not like getting less than 10% of the vote 3 times. So yeah, it's possible that Ellis needs to get triggered on this next one, and if he does, I don't know that he's gonna get on, right? So like, yeah, he may fall off. Let's get to a simple one. Iron Sheik, love the cheeky baby. He's a hard no for me, right? I like him. He's important of an era, but he's not a Hall of Famer, right? I don't have
Yeah,
to
I have to be.
Yeah.
I'm the same way. I like Sheik. I have a sweatshirt from Roots of Fight,
Yeah.
the Iron Sheik shirt, so it's very comfortable. But good career, but I'd have to say no. I mean, he won.
Oh, he has a fascinating life story, like him being friends with Saddam Hussein.
Yes,
Like, there's some stuff in his life that you're like, and being the Olympic, he was an Olympic wrestler. He was a
Yeah.
legit world class elite athlete before he fell apart. But like, I mean, Iron Sheik is a really interesting person to like dig into. He's not a Hall of Famer. I mean, he does tick some of the folk hero boxes. He's not big enough for a draw. Not a big work rate guy. I mean, he's good enough to be on the ballot, yes, but no, he's a no for me. Like, I think we're all
he's
kind
got
of
a
like,
case.
yeah,
Yeah, he's got a case. If the category was weaker, he'd have a bigger
yeah.
case, but not right now. No.
It's
Now,
it's
okay,
kind
so
of too
here's a question
strong.
for you. What
It's
if
too strong right
it
now,
was
man.
it was let me throw a curveball at you. What if it was Iron Sheik and Nikolai Volkov?
Then I have to think about how long of a tag team they were. I don't know.
They remind me a little bit of Ted Cozy. Like Ted Cozy, it'd be like a little bit Ted Cozy. Obviously, they're not nowhere near the workers Ted Cozy are, but it's an interesting kind of like, oh, what if we put him together with Nikolai? I still be a no, but it might be a more fun conversation actually.
Yeah.
Not that,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, she got like 28% of the vote, but I mean, I don't think I don't know where the rest of the sport is coming from. Okay, let's get to one of my yeses, which is Arn Anderson and Tully Blanchard with J.J. Dillon. They got 49% of the vote highest. They got 24% last year on year 9. Look, if we're talking about the greatest tag teams of all time, I mean, in a Hall of Fame, I need Arn and Tully in the Hall. I need Arn and Tully in the Hall, and I need them as a tag team in the Hall. And unless you put the Four Horsemen on as a group, I'm gonna be a yes on Arn and Tully because I think they should be in. Right? It's to me, like they're just like extremely important guys in the history. Now I understand that the definition is a little weird in how they're doing it because like JJ's there too.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like Arn, Tully,
That's what
and
throws me off
JJ.
a bit.
Yeah,
Whereas
Is it
if it was
just like
just
the
Arn and Tully,
JCP? Because if it's a JCP,
yeah,
Arn and Tully, they're great, but like,
JJ didn't. Yeah, because JJ didn't manage him in WWF. So it's
it's not the only.
it's only Jim Crockett work.
It's not the only weird definition. I would still be a yes on them because even though Dave's finding it weird, in my brain it makes sense, right?
Yeah,
Trust me, bro.
it's in the
Trust me,
same
bro.
it's in the same vein as the Von Erichs. Like the Von Erichs don't have a plethora of matches together as a trio, but as the concept of the Von Erichs, you think about it in totality. Yes, you have to put them as a yes. In same way with Arn Tully and JJ.
Yeah, so you're gonna be a yes on Arn and Tully and JJ.
If I had a vote, yes, and I've probably said a lot of yeses already. I haven't
No,
tracked them.
I'm keeping track. I have 5. Doc has 5. You have 4. So
Okay.
you're a yes right now on JYD, on the Bon Erics, on Sputnik, and on R and Tully. And then you had a couple maybes, but like the maybes, I think like we'll come back and say like, hey, do you want to change your vote on anything before? Um, um, Okay, so I'm gonna start moving this fast because we're getting into like the weeds on it. I'll ask if somebody wants to like give an opinion. Ricky Steamboat and Jay Youngblood, good tag team in Mid Atlantic.
Nope.
Ricky's already in. I'm a no. I mean, there's way better tag teams that like we're going no on, and I like them, but like no, unless it's anybody like making the case for Ricky Steamboat and Youngblood.
Too short of a run. Nah, I can't. Too short
They
of a run.
do.
Not
I mean,
enough time on the top.
and there's also some personal issues with Jay that we're not going to get into. So like, I'm like,
Yeah.
it's fine. I'm like, I mean, they're fine on the ballot, and we're fine having a conversation around it. But I'm like not going to vote for them.
Yeah, I
Heart
mean,
Foundation.
the final conflict tag. I want to. If you haven't watched it, the final with Slaughter and Canoodle, immediately watch it.
Yes.
If you never watched it,
It's
immediately
great.
watch it. But
Yes. I also like put the Mid Atlantic them against the Briscoes. That is another great match. There's a again from a work rate perspective, these guys are good. Again, short run. Ricky's already in. This is a worse version of the British Bulldogs case, right? The
Yeah.
Bulldogs have a better case than both these guys, or the Bulldogs have a better case than like this tag team. I think Ricky and Dynamite are both like no-brainer Hall failures. Heart Foundation, Heart and Neidhart, I am a no on. Again, for the same reason I just mentioned for Ricky Steamboat and Youngblood, and I would argue that like Steamboat and Youngblood, right, have a better drawing peak as a tag team than Brett and Jim.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
because, like, I mean, like, Brett breaks out to be on his own, but really, kind of, he's the star, right? I mean, I don't think like, and they really were more like heels. They weren't like kind of a drawing face kind of deal. Again, if we're comparing it, Bulldogs. Like, if I'm comparing tag teams, I'm going like Leon Arn, Bulldogs, or Steamboat and Dave Youngblood, and then the Hearts, right? In terms of like
Yeah.
Hall of Fame case.
Because
No, I think
when I
like
think of
I think Bret Hart was.
oh, sorry, when I think of like archetype tag teams, right? Arn and Tully are the archetype tag team. We see them kind of copied throughout the years. We see them copied now as FTR. Those are two Arns together.
DYI. Here's the thing, no, but DYI like Gargano and Ciampa already kind of copied too. So like this is
Yeah.
not a thing that is unique. People have like the what is it? God, I'm forgetting their names. The Bullet Club guys. What's her name?
The Good Brothers.
The Good Brothers had a little bit of like in terms of presentation. I'm not talking about work. I'm talking presentation. So the Good
Yeah.
Brothers had like a little bit of that. Like that element of how they presented themselves as a tag team is influential as a heel kind of tag team. The Midnights even kind of copied a little bit of that too. Like when they were like the comedy bit. They do the comedy heel bit too a little bit
Yeah.
as like the heel showing ass. But
But-
again, the Horsemen did that too.
Yeah.
So
Like as the Heart
Like, it's
Foundation,
really-
like as just a tag team, just Brett and Anvil. I say no. They just didn't have like the drawing run on top like Demolition did, and they were just kind of like they're not like the definitive tag team of the '80s of WWF, and that's why I don't really see them as that level. And then Jim kind of drags them down a little bit as far as like some of their matches are great, right? The 2 out of 3 falls with the Bulldogs. Oh man, that's probably one. That's why it
by the
hurts
way,
so much to say no to the Bulldogs, because like
But again,
that's, like, such a great match.
Dynamite, and Brett are already in, right?
Yeah.
But no. I mean, I can't justify it.
Yeah,
JML,
I don't wanna
different
say-
opinion on the Hearts, or
so I have similar towards yours. I mean, I like the Bulldogs a lot more if we're thinking about it. And I'm maybe on the Bulldogs. So, but that's the thing. I've liked the Heart Foundation. Like, it's as a working team. Yes, I love to watch them on like just pull up and watch a Heart Foundation match. But as a Hall of Fame tag team, it's like it feels like I have to choose one or the other in terms of the Bulldogs. Hearts.
it's kind of fun. It's kind of funny. I know the Rockers fell off, and I would probably vote for the Rockers before the Hearts.
I mean,
As a tag
the Rockers. The
I
Rockers
get
do
that.
have the
Yeah.
run in Memphis, and they have a run in the AWA
Yes,
also.
they have a run in the AWA
So
too, and they have
I
the
was about
great
to
series of
mention the
matches.
AWA. Yeah.
Yeah. So the Rockers are a more accomplished tag team, but and actually, I'd probably vote the Rocker. I might vote the Rockers before Jungblood and Steamboat, but that's like a much more interesting conversation, because I
yeah,
think technically the Rockers were like no. See, here's the thing: the Rockers are a very important tag team stylistically, right? Because they're bringing that style that the Fantastics
yeah,
and some of
they're
the other
bringing the
like face
lucha.
tag teams had. So they're a very Rock and Roll Express tag team, but are more polished fashion in a way. It's not to say the
Yeah,
Rock and Roll weren't like great workers, but I think like the Rockers felt like a more finished act, even if they weren't as over as a drawing concern. And I'm getting into like tag teams. The Hearts, like Steamboat and Yellowblood, were like the big drawing concern, but they don't have the longevity, and like obviously it's kind of like that. But like that babyface heat tag team is kind of really interesting. But again, none of these guys like to bring it full circle, like the next tag team up, which is Gordman and Goliath, I'm a yes on, right? And I think they got 20% of the vote, but I think that they're much more important to me as kind of a thing, like in terms of historically, because of the way they drew in that territory and kind of like the influence and kind of the act. And I'm a big kind of,
yeah,
hey, the lucha acts are kind of underrepresented. So I think that they're kind of like a really that a lot of that Hollywood kind of stuff is kind of lost, and I think they're kind of like really important. And I would rather have a conversation, keep them on the ballot than like some of these other tag teams that I'm not voting for. So that is like I'm closed. I am at 6, and I cannot vote for anyone more. So like I am closing the book on all these other people. Sadly enough,
oh man.
I'm like my ballot would be JYD, June Byers, Devon Eriks, Sputnik Monroe, Anderson, and Tully Blanchard, and Black Gordon and Greg Goliath. But Black Gordon and Greg Goliath. Where you at, guys? At
With Gordon and Goliath, I mean, it's funny because when I looked into the backstory and just looking, I mean, there's not a lot of footage, so I
no,
haven't. But from what I've seen, they're really good. Dave always praises them when he talks about them because he saw them growing up watching in in the California area. But um, I know it's funny because I know they feuded against each other and they drew. Um,
Yeah,
and
classic lucha. That is classic. That is classic lucha. That is
and I'm
classic lucha.
thinking how I don't know how long were they a tag team and feud how long did they feud, how long were they a tag team in Mexico, because I'm thinking even though they they toured throughout California and in Texas, how long did they stay in Mexico? Because if I don't know if it'd be sacrilege to move them into the Mexico region, would they garner more
So they
support?
worked. So they worked in a lot of places. He won the tag title, NWA's American Tag Team Champion, 31 times. Black Gordman, 8 times with Great Goliath. But I mean, he also had other things. But he basically tagged with Gordman off and on, Gordman and Goliath tagged off and on their entire careers, and they were kind of like a draw, pretty much everywhere they went. So they worked all over the place. They worked most of that, but they also worked in Puerto Rico. So like they worked. They were a kind of very influential and very kind of like successful act, right? And worked everywhere. And this was a very successful territory too. I mean, um, they were working like back in the day. You worked everywhere, but like
yeah,
it's one of these it's one of these like great like one of these annoying things where like a lot of this tape is lost, right? It was destroyed. It doesn't exist. But they were kind of a drawing concern, and they were kind of like you know like to me, trusting the word of the people who've like talked about it and trusting the history and trusting the drawing record, I think again I would want to keep them on the ballot, and just for that, like for what I've heard from people I trust, I would say yes on. This is where again I'm also kind of like on the guy. I think Lucha's underrepresented, and I think they're like a very important Lucha team, right?
yeah. Because when you think about the Olympic, you think about the, you know, championship wrestling in Los Angeles. You think about the names that work there, and these two were the tag team of California. And it's just I this part gets so hard because I'm seeing who comes up next, and I'm like, I think I have only one more left. I think I only have one more left
You
because I
have
did.
you. So we have one vote in historical. Like I knew I was voting for Gordon and Goliath. What I wasn't
Yeah,
sure of is who I was going to spend like my other vote on, and I was like, no, I got to do it on. I need Art and Tully of all these tag teams. I need Art and Tully and Gordon and
yeah.
Goliath,
So
right? And the next one, and by the way, I'm going to leave you guys as a maybe on both of these, or unless somebody wants to say no on Gordon and Goliath already.
I'm a
I
maybe,
Pressure.
am
but leaning
I'm a
towards
maybe.
yes.
I'm a maybe
Okay,
because like as a historical
I'm gonna
person
leave
who
it.
like because I went to UCLA and
Let's
sort of watched their stuff. So yeah, we can move on.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna go zero on the rest of them for me. So like, does anybody want to make a case for Mad Dog and Butcher Patrón?
Again, it's like
Um,
Dynamite and the and Bulldog. Mad Dog has the career
Drawing act,
butcher.
drawing act, but
Yeah,
I think there's just too much in front of him for me like to even consider them. Drawing act, I mean, it's important, but no. I don't
yeah.
think they're important at the level for me to like to go ahead into that. Alpha and Sika?
that's the one I'm gonna say no, but I understand the case, but I would say no.
Yes, I agree with that.
Yeah.
I understand the case. I'm fine with them being in the ballot. I would not vote for them. Right. Bob Armstrong. I've actually argued strongly that Bob Armstrong is like he is the picture of the Hall of very good but not Hall of Fame. Right. He's fine, but I
Yeah.
mean he wasn't like he's not a guy who kind of like transcended. And I mean there's the fact like I
He,
don't believe him to be very influential either.
yeah.
Right. He's fine. He's
He
perfectly fine. But
yeah.
Bull
He
Bob.
he he had that that run in Smoky Mountain. That's what I know him for, and I think was he Continental? Was that where he was at? I don't really
Yeah,
have
but
a
he was
strong
never
case for
like
Yeah.
Bob.
so he was never a guy who kind of like transcended his
Yeah.
territory. I've actually looked at this case and like no, he's never a guy who transcends that. Like somebody like the next guy like Pampero Firpo transcended, right? And he was a guy who like drew a lot of places. Bob was a guy who drew locally but didn't really draw when he went national, right?
Yeah.
And even Pampero Firpo is a guy. Pampero Firpo is a guy who I would be. Firpo is who's the next guy I would consider, but I wouldn't vote for him now, right?
Big in Hawaii. Very big in
Yes.
Hawaii.
Oh, yeah, I love that big Hawaii territory. The big time wrestling is great, but yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, yeah.
Yeah. Because
So
we talked
everybody
about
else,
Alpha earlier, but like, well,
okay. So
he
Mad
came up
Dog
with
and
"Whoa yeah," so I just wanted to get that "Whoa yeah" in, because that's where Macho Man got it from.
anybody on Armstrong or Magda and Bushwashan, Afansika, Bob Armstrong, or Prepare Firpo? Anybody?
Eh.
Yeah, with Armstrong, there's what I've noticed just going through the ballots. I mean, just over the years, people that you know, there's a case for Bob Armstrong if you consider like locally, if you're a local legend, people value that a lot, and with him and the Continental, people love Bob Armstrong. I mean,
Oh,
him and his family, like people love him, and he's fun. He's fun to watch. But
oh, how important? Yeah, I know. I don't disagree with that, but how important is that territory?
some the people that love Continental, people that follow Continental and watched a lot of Continental, they love it. They say that's their favorite wrestling. So
Yeah.
it's hard to combat that, but I definitely get that. I'm not a
Somebody
person that's been heavy into Continental like that, but the people that
look.
do, they absolutely love it and love Bob Armstrong.
I've sat down and looked at and tried. If somebody wants to make a case for Bob Armstrong to convince me, please do. I haven't seen it enough to say that like, oh, he doesn't hit me on any of the pillars, right? I think probably significance is probably the one where he hits me the most, but he's not. It's you gotta talk to me. You gotta talk. It gets into like, is he like I start like I mentioned TNT Savio Vega before, and Savio's one that I use as kind of a benchmark. I said like, did he draw more houses than Savio Vega? And the answer is probably not. You start looking at the numbers, and like, did he have a feud at the level of like Savio having a feud with Steve Austin as he was coming up and kind of helping make Steve Austin Steve Austin? Probably not, right? And so like this is my and he again Savio's never been on the ballot. I'm like, can I make a case that like or like that he and in that by that comparison to me mentally I'm like I can't see it, right? If
Hmm.
somebody wants to make the case for him, please do because it doesn't like really exist to the level I think. Um, and I mean, I get it. He's a worthy person on the ballot. He's just never going to get my vote in this category where I'm like looking at like when I'm like looking at Steamboat and Youngblood and going like I can't vote for Steamboat and Youngblood, right? Or I'm looking at like Wild Bill Curry. If I'm looking at Wild Bill Curry and going like I can't vote for Wild Bill Curry, Bob Armstrong's not getting my vote, right? Does that make
Right,
Mhm.
sense?
right.
Like if I
Yeah.
have to like look at like at Cowboy Bob Ellis, if I have to look at Cowboy Bob Ellis, like I can't see Cowboy Bob Ellis, who I knew drew houses everywhere. Like I've seen the drawing, I've seen him drew gigantic houses at the end of his career in Puerto Rico. Like he was like no, he's a draw, and if I can't find a vote for him, I can't vote for Bob Armstrong or like the butcher Bad Dog and the Butcher with Sean, or like I mean
Mhm.
if I can't find a like honestly like as we get down here, I was talking like so the last three candidates right so. I can't find a vote for Pompeo Firpo. Pompeo Firpo is a draw and really good. Rhodes and Murdoch, I'm like, nah. I mean, anybody want to talk Rhodes and Murdoch or just kind of like go
Only
like,
thing is, I
okay,
would say no on Rhodes and Murdoch because I think, to me, um, and anybody who followed the Observer ballot throughout the years, Murdoch was always a
yeah.
a lightning rod for discussion. Like how JYD is for a lot of people now, Murdoch was for a long, long time
They were
until he fell off the ballot.
they were a really so okay. So a fair case on Rhodes and Murdoch. Rhodes and Murdoch were a really big time drawing tag team in the '70s. And as heels, as heels, and also Murdoch is a really great worker, right? And
Absolutely, absolutely.
obviously with all the flaws, I mean I can't see it. I'm not gonna vote for Dick Murdoch. I'm sorry. I mean I understand it, but I'm not gonna vote for him. And even in the tag team with Rhodes, there's just way better people in front of him. I was gonna
Yeah.
mention the guy who's last, who got 11% last year, Archie Goldie. I am a big Archie Goldie fan. As
Bret
I'm doing
Hart's
the research,
favorite
I'm like, who the fuck?
wrestler.
And here's the thing: if you go look at his stuff, he was like on top in Stampede for ages. And if you think about Stampede, he was the guy they would trust to work the young guys in Stampede. And think about the young guys who came through Stampede, who like trained by working programs with Archie Goldie, right? Think about like some of the
JYD.
legends who came through doing that. And if you go watch him, he's got this great brawling style. He's a really good talker. He's just like really like the matches. If you watch matches from him from like 1975 or 76, it's the kind of stuff that you can put on TV now, right? Because it's just brawling and like there's good technical. It's really good work, right? Is he a Hall of Famer? No. Is he somebody you should definitely track down and learn about? Yes, yes, he's really good. Like Bret Hart has good taste on this. Archie Goldie's really fucking good. He's not a
Yeah.
Hall of Famer, but he's really fucking good. Um, okay, so now I'm gonna close historic. I'm gonna ask, hey, Doc, you owe me a vote, unless you say you're just gonna vote for five. You got Young Yard Dog, June Byers, Devon Eriks, Sputnik, Pauline Arn, and you had Cowboy Bob Ellis as maybe, Gordon and Goliath as maybe, and anybody from the bottom as maybes too. So what do you got for me?
God, this is so hard, man. Because I'm torn between Gorman and Goliath and Wild Bill Curry. Those are like the two acts that like I'm torn on. So I'm gonna take the
I was like,
coward's
I
way
was
out.
that.
I'm gonna take the
Uh,
cowardly out, and since like I was saying earlier, I did seek their stuff out because they're a lot of Los Angeles, LA, Hollywood wrestling is available at UCLA,
yeah.
and I'm gonna be a coward and I'm gonna say I'm gonna abstain from voting because I'm so maybe on Gordman and Goliath and Wild Bill Curry that I can't
Yeah,
like
I'm not gonna
argue
let you be
one
a
over the
coward. You gotta
other.
give me.
Okay,
You
then
gotta
I,
give
I'm
me
gonna
one. You gotta.
okay, I'm gonna give you one, man. That's gonna be Gordman and Goliath.
Okay. Okay. So you got you the sixth. So same deal, JML. I got you with Junkyard Dog. I got you with Von Eriks. I got you with Sputnik, and I got you with Arn Anderson and Arn and Tully. You owe me two votes, or I mean, you could just say one, right? But what do you got?
Now, in my mythical ballot, I would. I'm going to use the 2 more votes. I would lean towards Gorman, Goliath, and then June Byers. That's what I would go with.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a good combo. I think we all agreed. Interestingly enough, I think we
That's
all
so
kind of
weird,
agreed.
man.
But I mean, I mean, reasonably. Here's the thing. I understand votes for Oli. I understand votes for the Bulldogs. I understand votes for Albert Curry. I understand votes for Cowboy Bob Ellis. Right. I
Yeah.
understand votes for Steamboat and Youngblood too. All those I understand, and then maybe even Pampero Firpo. I'll be like, yeah, but I mean, I just have to kind of like look at it and go like, these are the guys I kind of like, like. It's funny that we all came to the same ballot, but hey, that's the way it happens.
I yeah.
You want to do a quick bio break, and then like get back to Japan?
Uh, yeah. Let me just put a pause right here.